Of chapter 7, we've been talking about, we resolved the question initially in the beginning of the Maimer, what was the difference? We asked if the mitzvah of Chanukah, lighting the menorah, is to commemorate the miracle of the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, in the temple, so then why would the practice, the observance of lighting the menorah, why would that not be similar and modeled after the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash? In the Beis HaMikdash, they lit the menorah during the day, right before sundown, during Plag HaMincha, the last hours of day. And it was 7 branches. And our menorah is lit specifically after nightfall, not during the day. And also we have 8 branches. So we explained the difference is that our menorah has the capacity, and the Chanukah lights are about illuminating the darkness, which the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash was able to be defiled. That menorah was not able. It was a great spiritual light, but one that could still be challenged. And proof is that the Greeks come into the temple and they actually stop that service where the menorah is no longer being lit and they contaminate the oil. But Chanukah, even in the face of the Greek oppression and the contamination of the oil, they were able to find that small jar of oil. The small jar of oil represents, in our service of Hashem, represents self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice comes from the essence of the soul, which has no counterpart in the unholy, even though everything in the world has a everything in the spiritual realm has a counterpart in the unholy realm, except for the essence of the soul. The essence has no counterpart. Yechida, that level of Yechida of the neshama, has no counterpart, and therefore, not only can the unholiness, the forces of unholiness, can they not conceal it or contaminate it, but it has the capacity to overcome it and to illuminate it. Here, what happens is it's not just that the essence of the soul is so powerful that it can overwhelm an enemy, that it can overwhelm unholiness, but since it's unparalleled, so therefore, the type of victory, the type of light that shines is one so the victory is a complete victory in that the enemy ceases to exist. There's no enemy in the face of self-sacrifice, the self-sacrifice of a Jew, one that is bound to the essence of Hashem. There's no enemy. So that's why the victory is complete. But that's because of light. Even with regard to the enemy itself, unholiness, once a Jew serves God with self-sacrifice, and so they're accessing that essence of the soul, so the effect it has on the unholiness is also significant and different, in that, number one, it eliminates it, so not only that there's no challenge to it because it's so great, but also the enemy that resides on the lower levels, that enemy is defeated, so there ceases to be a challenge to the other levels, the lower levels of holiness, and furthermore, it actually transforms it into light.
What you're saying is that the menorah that we like today is actually, in a certain sense, holier than the menorah.
Yes, exactly.
It's just like it says when Hashem did it, because we're lighting it ourselves.
Yes.
It's almost like Purim, the miracle of Purim. Once we accept it, that was the real Nasa and Ishmael, because we did it on our own without being told.
Right. So that's what we're saying. We're going to clarify that specific point also as we move on in the Maimer. So hopefully we'll get through it today. Okay. Let's get to the last paragraph here of chapter 7. We quoted. You recall, we quoted from the Gemara that the time period for lighting the menorah, when is the window? The window begins from after the sun goes down until the Rigla Talmudoy, the Talmudoyin people who are the wood gatherers. They would sell wood in the marketplace. They would be the last ones to remain in the marketplace because people would go home after business hours. They would find that they have no wood. They can't warm their homes for the for overnight, so they'd come back to the marketplace. So the Talmudoim was a tribe of people from Talmud that would sell wood, and they would be the last ones in the marketplace. Once they left, so then it was already too late to light the menorah. We discussed this in the last class. So now let's take a look at what this means based on in light of what we've been explaining. So this is then a deeper meaning in what the Gemara says, that what the mitzvah of lighting the Chanukah candles, the window is until nobody's left in the marketplace. And the Gemara says not only nobody's left in the marketplace, but ad kalya rigla de Talmudoy, till the feet of the Talmudoyim cease from the marketplace. Talmudoy hem hamoridim b'malchus shemayim. So this idea of Talmudoy is simply, as we said, we explained Talmudoy. People from Talmud was a place. The Talmudoyim were people that were wood that would sell wood. But Talmudoy, the word Talmudoy, also Talmud is Eisis Meiredes. The word Talmud has the same letters as the word Meiredes, which means somebody who goes against God, rebels against God. So Talmudoy represents a level of unholiness that rebels against God. They're the ones who are Meired b'malchus shemayim. V'heim misaktim b'shuk. And so it follows that since these are people, the idea of Talmud, the people that rebel against God, so where do they spend their time? In the marketplace. Who's in the marketplace more than anybody else? These people. Why? Because the marketplace is Bechinas Rishus Rabim Turi de Pruda. The marketplace, that represents the public domain. The public domain is a metaphor for the unholiness. We know that God, the one and only God, He's one, and He's one in His creation, He's one in the world. And so God represents the private domain, the domain with one owner. But when we talk about a public domain, which is ownerless, which is free and wild, so that is the attitude of unholiness. So when we say Rosh Hashanah, we're talking about unholiness, the mountains of separation, that feels itself separate from God. It's through lighting the menorah. So we said, the Gemara is simply saying that there's a window. You can light the menorah from when the sun goes down until the Taberdoin are out of the marketplace. But now that we're saying Taberdoin represents a certain level of unholiness, that one that rebels against God, so now we read it differently. You light the menorah in the time of darkness, until when? The menorah is lit and illuminates until Kal Yarigla Taberdoin, until you've eliminated, until that point when the unholy, the rebellion against God is eliminated.
Does that mean that you don't like the normal Mashiach comes?
We do. We'll get there. You don't have to stay till the end, though. You have to stay till the end.
But doesn't that mean that's when
give away all the spoilers?
Doesn't that mean that's when the rebellion against God is over?
Yes. But so we're gonna address it. We're gonna address that. You're jumping the gun. Yeah. Okay. So not only does it eliminate the enemy, but also it causes a yearning. Kliya, which means Kalya, which we said was ceasing, also is Miloshin Kiloyan, has the same root as the word Kiloyan, which means yearning. Kalei Nefesh, and the expiring of the soul. So we're saying it's twofold, and this follows what we said earlier. We said in the last class, we talked about the essence of the soul, that when the essence of the soul is activated, so what happens, not only do you defeat the enemy, do you defeat the unholiness, but you transform it as well. It also is transformed. The same thing is here. We're saying by Kal Yigla the Tamadoi that since we're talking about lighting the candle, the Chanukah lights expressing the essence of the soul as it's bound with God, so therefore it has this double effect. On the one hand, there's no enemy, it defeats the enemy. Kal Yigla the Tamadoi, there's no more Tamadoi, they're no longer in the marketplace, there's no marketplace, there's no Tamadoi. And furthermore, it's Kal Yigla the Tamadoi that not only the Chanukah light has the ability to eliminate it from the marketplace, but it has the ability to transform it, so that the Kal Yirigah Tamerdoim, that the Tamerdoim, these who had rebelled against God, now have a yearning to connect to God, to cleave to God. Okay, chapter 8. So now we've addressed satisfactorily, I think, the questions that we asked about why Chanukah is different, why the menorah is different than the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Because the Neiros Chanukah, we explained, represent a deeper level of connection with God that has a greater capacity than even the candles of the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. But we had another question we had asked, which was, we said, the Gemara says, the Machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, what is the order of lighting the menorah? Do we increase or do we decrease? So we said that the Beis Shammai says that you decrease. First night you light 8, the second night 7, etc. Beis Hillel says you increase. We start first night 1 candle, second night 2, etc. And we go up. What was the reason for Beis Shammai? The Gemara says because Keneged Pari Achad, that we light the menorah in decreasing fashion, 8, 7, 6, just like the bulls that were offered in the Beis HaMikdash on Sukkot, which were in decreasing fashion. We started with 13, then 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Right, till we got to 7. After 7 days of Sukkot, then we got to Shmini Atzeret. So we decreased, and we explained that this position of Beis Shammai, that Chanukah is similar to Parei Echad, to the bulls that were offered in the Beis HaMikdash, is even Beis Hillel agrees with it. It's just that Beis Hillel says there's an overriding principle, that the principle of increasing in holiness, that takes precedence. So that's essentially the argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, is what takes precedence. Is it the connection to the bulls, or is it increasing in holiness? That's the question. But both agree with the premise, both agree that there's a connection, there's a link between Chanukah and Sukkot, and specifically in Sukkot with the bulls that were offered on the altar. So we asked, what possible connection is there? Right? So really, simply, you just read it, there's a similarity, but what's the connection? It has to be a deeper connection. So we have to explain that. So now we can understand why in Sukkot, the Gamin Pari Achad, who is Galas Makifim. What's the whole point of Sukkot? What's the theme of the whole festival of Sukkot? We said it's connected to Sukkot and specifically Pari Achad. So first we'll explain the connection to Sukkot. Sukkot is all about his Galas Makifim, revealing the transcendent light. The Dugma Sukkah, Kipshuta Shemakev, is Al Adam. Similar to the Sukkah, which is transcendent. Sukkah surrounds the person. It says the things that are concealed on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur become revealed on Sukkot. How do they become revealed? And all this energy that we tap into, the spiritual energy that we tap into on the high holidays, is manifest on Sukkot. How do we see it on Sukkot? Because you look at the Sukkah. The Sukkah surrounds us. Why does the Sukkah surround us? Because it represents that higher level of makif, a level that can't be internalized. It's something that's outside of us. It's transcendent. And that you see when you look at, you sit in the Sukkah, you look up at the Schach, you're seeing this higher level of makif that's revealed. Furthermore, it says that that Sukkot is Yiminei Techapkeni. Sukkot is God's right hand embracing us. When you embrace somebody, you surround them. So that represents transcendence around something else. So that's the idea of Sukkot. Sukkot is makif. Ubishmini the Sukkot, and on the 8th day of Sukkot, Nimshacham HaMakifim Netzon Gam HaPnimis. On Shmini Atzeres, what happens? The word Atzeres means that it collects. Atzeres means a refrain from work. So that's why a holiday that has no, doesn't have a specific mitzvah like Sukkah or Shofar or Matzah, like the two holidays of Shavuos and Shmini Atzeres that have no mitzvah that's identified with that specific day. Those days are called Atzeres. Why? Because they're defined by not doing work. So Atzeres means to refrain from work, but also Atzeres means that it gathers, it contains within it. So it's Oitzer, it gathers everything within it. So Shmini Atzeres is the gathering of all of these higher level of makif. On the 8th day, it all is internalized. That's also why we go from eating in the sukkah to eating in the house. It's the idea of internalizing the makif. And that is bedugmas ha'avodah the Mesiras Nefesh l'Chanukah shebels kanal v'chayderes v'chol keiches nefesh. When we talk about makif being internalized, so that's similar to what we're talking about with regard to Chanukah. The whole point of Chanukah is the essence of the soul, that level of transcendence that is then expressed through our behavior, through Mesiras Nefesh. And that causes a transformation of the unholy. The same is true with Sukkot. That Sukkot is about accessing that transcendent level, that higher level of transcendence, and internalizing it. Why? Because transcendence and internalization are two different things. Immanence and transcendence are two things. But like we said, the property of the essence of the neshama, the highest level, the Yechida, is that it's the essence of all parts. So if you say that makif is coming into a panimi, what are you talking about? You're talking about that higher level of essence. That's how you can bring it into a panimius. Right? Does that make sense? I'm sorry that we're rushing a little today, but that's so when we talk about transcendence, there's a level of transcendence, there's a level of immanence. They're two different things. But if we're saying the idea is that it's internalized, we're internalizing it, so then the level of transcendence we're talking about the higher level. The essence of the soul that we're talking about. The mitzvah Shmein Aleph Zayin. Sha'alev Shalamayla Mishlashos Nimshach V'Zayin Mishlashos. This is what we reference, this idea of 8. This is why they're both 8 days. We ask why are they 8 days? Because 8 we say is higher, is a transcendent level of godliness. But here he's saying, never saying 8. Number 8 is Aleph Zayin, 1-7. So you have, we quoted, remember we spoke about the Kli Yakar who says that Shmini, he says in the beginning of Parsha Shmini is Aleph Reichav Al Zayin. There's the Aleph that rides on top of the Zayin. So the conversation, I don't want to get into that conversation. Now the point is that there's a difference between there's a difference between when we say that there's the Aleph Reichav Al Zayin and then Aleph Zayin. 1-7 basically means that the higher level, it's not just that it's above it that informs it, but this is the essence of all of it. In other words, you have 8, you have numbers, and you go in order. Aleph Reichav Al Zayin, you have 7, and then after 7 comes 8. But then you say 1-7, what does that mean? That the 8 is a culmination. It's the 8 is found in all of the numbers. All the numbers have that aleph in it. Aleph Zayin means all of 7 have the 1 in it, meaning that the transcendent level is now expressed internally. Just as we said that the lights of Chanukah affect the rigla and the feet of the Talmud, which, as we explained, Mishnei in 2 ways. Number 1, first it defeats them and vanquishes them. And then, furthermore, it causes them to also be transformed to holiness. So we explained the connection between Chanukah and Sukkot. What's the connection specifically with Parei Chag, with the bulls that were offered in the Beis Hamikdash? So he explains, because the whole point of Chanukah is to affect a defeat and then a transformation of the unholy. And the same is true with regard to the 70 bulls that were offered on Sukkot. Why is it on Sukkot that we bring 70, offer 70 bulls, and we do it in a decreasing fashion? So the reason is because the 70 bulls represent the 70 nations. The 70 nations are antagonistic to the Jewish people. And what do we want? We want to decrease the anti-Semitism. We want to decrease that antagonism. We want it to be less, not more. So therefore, when we're praying for the welfare of the 70 nations, in what way do we do it? In decreasing fashion, to decrease the opposition to Judaism, to the Jewish people, the opposition to God. So therefore, we decrease. So the point of decreasing is to defeat that enemy. But it doesn't stop there. It's not just about defeating them, but it's also that they should also come around to helping the Jewish people. The Medrash says that if the nations of the world only knew how much they gain and benefit from the fact that the Jewish people pray for them in the temple, that the offering of the sacrifice in the temple, how it benefits the nations of the world, if they only knew, they would come to the temple and they would guard it from the outside. They'd have legions come outside and protect the temple from the outside. So we see, what's the point? Protecting the temple, that enhances the service in the temple. Protecting the temple is, in addition, it's an increase in holiness. But through transforming them, so there's 3 points here. Number one, we offer the bulls in decreasing fashion to defeat the spirit of unholiness. Furthermore, we do it to a point that if they come around, the point is transformation, so that they come around also to protect the temple, the Beis Hamikdash. And what happens when they're also protecting the temple? So you see that they've been transformed for a longing to serve God, and to connect to God, and to help the Jewish people. What happens as a result of that? By protecting the temple, that enhances the service of the temple itself. So there's an additional benefit in holiness that comes as a result of it. Just as it says about when Mashiach comes, and we're going to connect it now, this idea with Mashiach, both Chanukah and this transformation to Mashiach, that when it says when Mashiach comes, it says that he will then change all the nations of the world will serve only God, meaning that they will also be serving God. What will happen at that time when the nations will be transformed, will be rehabilitated, will now be serving God? What will happen as a result? The nations tend your sheep, your flocks, assist you. Just as we find played out in the Beis Hamikdash, that first you brought for the 7 days of Sukkot, we brought 70 bulls in a decreasing fashion, and that causes not only a subduing of the forces of unholiness, but a transformation to the point that what happens as a result? What happens at Shmini Atzeres? We bring one bull, one corresponding to the one nation, the one people, to the Ummah Yechida, to the Jewish people. Meaning, how do we arrive at that higher sacrifice, the one represented in the one bull? It's through the 7 days before, when we were offering the bulls for all the other nations. So it's from that we then get to the one nation, to that one thing. So we see that they enhance and help in the service of Hashem, and lead to an increase in holiness. So it's not only that they're defeated, it's not just that not only that they're defeated, but they're transformed, rehabilitated, and transformed also to serve Hashem. But as a result of that, there's an increase in holiness. Hine, chapter 9. Say that the mitzvah of lighting the candles of the menorah is when the sun goes down. What are we talking about? We're talking specifically about the time of Golus, the darkness of exile. Especially the darkest of times in exile, which is the last moments of exile. Right? The Gemara says that was in the heels of Mashiach, before Mashiach comes. This is in the lesson, the message of Chanukah for each and every one of us in the time of exile. What's the purpose of the darkness of Golus? It's to cause us, it's to stir us and move us to Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. Through this, the darkness is transformed into light. In other words, I was explaining here how it's possible. We're talking about now that the darkness, not only is the darkness defeated or transformed, but it actually it enhances the service of Hashem, and it brings an increased level of holiness. How so? So in our lives, what does that mean? When we look at the Golus, when we look at the darkness of Golus, so we see a challenge to serving God. There's a challenge to God, and a challenge to serving Hashem, and a challenge to doing the right thing. There's a concealment, there's a darkness, a concealment of God when serving God becomes a challenge. But what's the point of that challenge? Why do we have that challenge? The point of the challenge is to overcome the challenge. The point of the challenge is when it gets difficult to serve God, what does that cause you to do? How do you overwhelm and overpower and serve God? Especially today, in the Ikvus of the last days of Galus. Today, why would anybody serve God if not because they were serving with Mesiras Nefesh? To give up whatever it is that they want, all their drives, all their interests, being so consumed by the darkness, and yet overcoming it to serve Hashem, it's only an expression of the essence of the soul. What expresses it? What brings it out? What brings it out is the challenge, the darkness. So it's the darkness itself that leads to this higher form of service. Right? So this is the idea of the transforming the darkness, that it brings an enhanced level of holiness. You follow? Yachad. Upon him, Rubam, the Rubam, the Kulam, I feel like they mitzvah achas shal echad mitzvah. Hey, but my machshava who machrias atzav es kol elam goyim lo yelaim tshuva vatzal. It's from the Rambam, famous quote from the Gemara. It's not insignificant that when we talk about serving Hashem, motivated to serve Hashem, we talk about darkness and the challenges. So the Rebbe is saying that each and every one of us has that capacity to transform the whole world. Because if we look at the whole world as being equal, as Rabanan very eloquently describes, then your next move tips the scales one way or the other. So if we serve Hashem in that way, we can then bring about redemption.
Serve in what way? For simcha.
Well, serve in simcha, but serve with that self-sacrifice to overcome that darkness. We transform that darkness into.
He just wants simcha. That's what the pasuk says in Devarim.
He wants us to do it b'simcha. He doesn't just want simcha, joy without service.
To do
it, yeah.
To do it with just.
And one of the ways to do it, right? So how do you do it b'simcha? If you recognize, number one, that the whole point of the challenge is only to bring out that greatness that you have inside that would not come out otherwise. Without the challenges, we wouldn't have to access Mesiras Nefesh. If it's easy to serve Hashem, then you don't need any sacrifice to serve Hashem. So the whole point of the challenge, right? But the whole point of the challenge is to lead us to self-sacrifice, to uncover, to access the essence of the neshama. When we access the essence, what does that do? Number one, it affects the whole being, as we said, because it's the essence of everything. Also, it pushes away the darkness because darkness can't conceal the essence, and furthermore, it transforms it, as we explained all the different stages here. Chapters. And more so like that. So this is true with regard to all mitzvahs. Any mitzvah that he does has this ability. When you do a mitzvah with Mesiras Nefesh, any mitzvah that you do, that it has this effect. What's the connection to Chanukah specifically? Because obviously we're learning this concept, we're learning from mitzvah of Chanukah. But how does it connect specifically to Chanukah? The Rebbe says, there's a unique connection between Chanukah, more so than other mitzvahs, the Chanukah menorah, with Mashiach. It says, the Gemara says, Warren Sukkah says that there are 7 shepherds and 8 princes that lead the Jewish people. Of the 8 princes, 2 of them, one is Eliyahu Hanavi, who's going to be the forebear, who's going to tell us that Mashiach is coming, and Mashiach is another one. They belong to the 8. The 8, of course, the significance of it we've explained. So we see that Mashiach is connected also with this idea of 8. Inyan Shmeinis Neres the Chanukah, the idea of the 8 candles of the menorah, it's the same thing. Another connection is the question is Chanukah says, we quoted this that when in Parshas Ba'aleischa, so it says that right before Parshas Nasi, we talked about at the inauguration of the tabernacle in the desert. So the 12 tribes, the princes of the 12 tribes, offered sacrifices as an inauguration for the temple. When Aaron, the high priest, saw this, he felt bad that he wasn't part of it because the tribe of Levi didn't participate in this inaugural in these inaugural rites. So Hashem reassures Aaron, and he says to him, "Don't worry, your portion is greater than theirs, because you're going to light the menorah, and the light of the menorah doesn't ever cease." So the Ramban, one of the classic commentaries on the Torah, asks, what does it mean it's not going to cease? Just as the Karban ceased with the destruction of the temple, so too the service of lighting the menorah in the temple. We also don't light the menorah in the temple. So what does it mean it doesn't cease? She says it's a reference to Chanukah. That when it says that the light, your lights, Aaron's lights, are not going to cease, it's referring to the Neiros Chanukah, the Chanukah menorah that we light even during the time of exile. But what does this mean? As Michael asked earlier, this is where we get into it here. It's not just that it continues through exile. It'll continue also in the times of Mashiach. Just as we have the idea of Chanukah, that the light of the Beis HaMikdash, the spiritual service of the temple, could be interrupted by unholiness. Exile comes and no longer do we have a temple. It could stop it. But the Chanukah lights can't be stopped. Why? Because it's talking about, because it represents a level of essence of the soul, which, as we explained at length, it has no challenge, there's no counterpart. And so therefore, even in time of darkness, time of exile, the Chanukah menorah continues to shine. And the same is true with regard to Mashiach. We've had other redemptions. We've been redeemed from Egypt, we've been redeemed from Galus, from Yavin, from Babel. We've had exiles and we've had redemptions, and yet they were always followed by another exile. Whereas this final exile, there will be, when Mashiach comes, this will be it. What does it mean that this will be it? It's not just that there won't be another exile. Just simply, God could tell us the future, this is going to be the end, we're not going to have any more exile. But it's the nature of the future redemption is such that it's not possible for there to be another exile. Because that'll be a complete redemption. What does it mean that it's going to be a complete redemption? That's when the essence will be revealed, and in the face of essence, it's not possible for there to be exile. It's not possible for darkness to conceal. Just like it's not possible for darkness to conceal the light of the menorah. So we see the connection of the menorah specifically with redemption, with Mashiach. That's what Rabbi underlines, emphasizes here. That not just that there won't be, but it's not possible for there to be. So to the third temple, who buys Nitzchi, will be an eternal one. Will never be destroyed. The Mashiach come and redeem us and lead us upright to our land, speedily. So the